What if I told you that sometimes the biggest sign a woman loves you is the fear of losing you? Not the loud kind of fear, not the dramatic kind you see in movies, but the quiet kind, the kind hidden in small moments. The way she suddenly listens more carefully when you talk, the way her tone changes when she thinks you're pulling away, the way she watches you when you're not looking. Most men completely miss these signals. They assume that if a woman is calm, distant, or acting normal, she doesn't care. But female psychology often works differently. When a woman truly values a man, when she feels emotionally invested, the possibility of losing him creates a tension inside her. And that tension shows up in subtle behaviors most men were never taught to recognize. One of the strongest signs she's afraid of losing you is this: she starts paying closer attention to you than ever before. Not in an obsessive or controlling way, but in a deeply aware way. She notices the small changes: your mood, your silence, your energy. If you reply slower than usual, she notices. If you sound a little colder on the phone, she notices. If you start focusing more on your own life, she notices. And suddenly she becomes more present. She asks more questions. She listens longer. She studies your reactions. Why? Because uncertainty triggers emotional awareness. When a woman feels secure that a man will never leave, she relaxes into the relationship. But when she senses even the smallest possibility that she could lose him, her attention sharpens. Her mind starts quietly analyzing everything. Not because she wants to control you, because she doesn't want to lose what she values. Many men misread this moment. They think she's being needy or overthinking things, but what's actually happening is deeper. She's emotionally invested, and when a woman invests emotionally, the idea of losing the connection creates a kind of silent alarm in her mind. That's why you'll notice her remembering small details about you, things you said weeks ago, things you casually mentioned in conversation, your goals, your stresses, your habits. She begins showing you in subtle ways that she sees you. And here's the truth most people never talk about: attention is one of the clearest currencies of emotional value. People pay attention to what they're afraid to lose. Think about it. When something in your life truly matters, you protect it. You watch over it. You become aware of its presence. Women are no different. When she senses that your presence in her life is meaningful, when she realizes your attention, your energy, your time isn't guaranteed forever, something shifts inside her. She becomes more emotionally tuned in. Her curiosity about you grows. She wants to understand what makes you happy, what frustrates you, what motivates you. Not because she's trying to impress you, because she's trying to protect the connection. But here's where many men make a mistake. The moment they sense this attention, they become arrogant. They start playing games. They try to create artificial distance to increase her fear. And that's where things fall apart. Real emotional attraction doesn't grow through manipulation. It grows through authenticity. A woman fearing the loss of a man she respects is not about power. It's about emotional investment. And when that investment is real, the signals become impossible to ignore. You'll see it in the way she listens, the way she watches, the way she slowly begins prioritizing your presence in her world. Because when someone truly matters, losing them stops feeling like a small possibility and starts feeling like something the heart desperately wants to avoid. But attention is only the beginning. Sometimes the fear of losing you reveals itself in ways that are far more surprising and far more powerful than most men expect. Another powerful sign a woman may be afraid of losing you appears in a place most men overlook completely: effort, real effort. Not the effort someone makes when they're trying to impress you in the beginning. Anyone can do that for a short time. Anyone can be charming for a few dates. Anyone can say the right words when attraction is new. But sustained effort, the kind that appears after comfort settles in, tells a different story. When a woman feels emotionally safe, but also aware that you are a man with options, goals, and a life moving forward, she begins investing energy into the relationship in quiet ways. She tries to make your life easier. She remembers things that matter to you. She adjusts small behaviors to avoid unnecessary conflict. These things rarely come with announcements. She doesn't say, "Look how hard I'm trying." Instead, it appears in subtle actions. Maybe she texts you just to check if you arrived home safely. Maybe she supports your goals instead of competing with them. Maybe she becomes more thoughtful about how she communicates with you. These gestures may seem small, but psychologically, they reveal something deeper. Investment. Human beings naturally invest time and effort into what they don't want to lose. If something feels replaceable, people rarely put in the work to protect it. But when something feels valuable, effort becomes natural. This is especially true in relationships. A woman who fears losing a meaningful connection doesn't just hope things work out. She begins nurturing the bond in quiet ways. She tries to strengthen what already exists. And sometimes this effort appears in an unexpected form. She becomes more supportive of your independence. Many men assume that if a woman fears losing them, she will become controlling. Sometimes that happens in unhealthy dynamics, but in emotionally mature connections, something different occurs. She respects your growth. She encourages your ambitions. She understands that trying to trap someone rarely keeps them. Instead, she supports the version of you that makes you feel alive. Why? Because she wants to be part of the life you're building, not the obstacle standing in its way. This is where emotional intelligence reveals itself. A woman who truly values you often understands something many people learn too late. Love cannot survive without respect, and respect cannot exist without freedom. So she makes an effort to show you that being with her does not mean losing yourself. She becomes someone who adds peace to your life, not pressure, someone who celebrates your wins, not someone who competes with them. And when you look closely, you'll see the quiet truth behind these actions. She isn't doing these things to earn your approval. She's doing them because your presence in her life matters, because losing you would leave a space she doesn't want to feel. But effort can appear in another unexpected way, one that many men misunderstand completely. Sometimes when a woman fears losing a man, she becomes emotionally honest in ways she wasn't before, and that honesty can reveal far more about her feelings than words ever could. Sometimes the clearest sign a woman is afraid of losing you isn't how perfect she acts, it's how honest she becomes. At first, that might sound strange. Most people assume that when someone fears losing a partner, they try to appear flawless. They hide their worries. They avoid difficult conversations. They pretend everything is fine. But real emotional attachment often produces the opposite reaction: honesty, not brutal criticism, not unnecessary drama, but emotional openness. When a woman begins expressing how she truly feels about certain situations, it often means she cares enough about the relationship to risk vulnerability. Think about this carefully. Silence is easy when someone doesn't matter. When a person is emotionally detached, they rarely invest energy into expressing their feelings. They simply distance themselves and move on. But when someone values a connection, they fight for clarity. They want understanding. They want the relationship to grow instead of slowly fading. So she begins telling you things she once kept inside. If something bothers her, she says it. If she feels insecure about something, she admits it. If she misses you, she lets you know. Not in a manipulative way, but in a human way. This kind of emotional transparency requires courage, because vulnerability always carries risk. When someone opens up about their feelings, they are essentially placing their emotional world in someone else's hands. And people rarely do that unless the connection means something real to them. Many men misinterpret this stage. They assume that when a woman shares concerns or emotions, she's creating problems. But often, she's actually trying to protect the relationship from silent distance. She doesn't want resentment to grow quietly. She doesn't want misunderstandings to slowly damage what you've built. So she chooses honesty over comfort. That honesty may appear in simple moments. She might say she misses spending time together. She might ask where the relationship is going. She might express appreciation for things you do. All of these conversations reveal something deeper than the words themselves. They reveal emotional investment, because people who are afraid of losing someone important rarely stay emotionally silent. They try to communicate. They try to understand. They try to strengthen the bond before it becomes fragile. And here's something many people never realize. The opposite of love is not conflict. The opposite of love is indifference. When someone stops caring completely, that's when conversations disappear. That's when emotional silence takes over. But when a woman still talks, still expresses, still tries to connect, it often means she's protecting something valuable, and that value is you. However, emotional honesty is only one layer of this psychology. Because sometimes the fear of losing someone appears not in serious conversations, but in moments that seem playful, curious, or even teasing, and those moments can reveal more about her feelings than she ever intends to say out loud. There's a moment that happens in many relationships that most men completely misunderstand. It often looks like curiosity, sometimes like teasing, sometimes like casual questions that seem almost random. But hidden inside those moments is a powerful psychological signal. When a woman is afraid of losing you, she often becomes curious about your future, not in a controlling way, not in a way that feels like interrogation, but in subtle questions that reveal how she imagines your life moving forward. She might ask where you see yourself in a few years. She might ask about your plans, your goals, or the direction your life is taking. She might even joke about certain future situations just to observe your reaction. On the surface, these conversations can seem light, but beneath them lies something deeper. She's trying to understand if she still belongs in that future. Human beings naturally want security in their emotional connections. When someone becomes important to us, we begin imagining a life where that person remains part of our world. So when a woman fears losing a man she respects and values, she starts searching for clues about where she stands in his life story. Not because she wants control, because she wants reassurance. She wants to know that the connection she feels isn't temporary, that the time and emotion she's investing are not leading toward an inevitable goodbye. And here's where it becomes interesting. Sometimes she won't ask directly. Instead, she'll bring up topics that reveal your mindset. She might talk about relationships in general. She might mention stories about couples. She might ask your opinion about loyalty, commitment, or long-term plans. To an outside observer, these conversations seem casual, but psychologically they function as emotional radar. She's listening carefully to your answers, not just the words, but the tone behind them. Is he serious about life? Does he value loyalty? Does he see relationships as something meaningful or something temporary? Every response you give quietly builds a picture in her mind, and that picture helps her decide how safe it is to invest her heart. Women who fear losing someone important often become incredibly perceptive during these moments. They observe, they listen, they connect small details that many men don't realize they're revealing, because when the heart becomes involved, curiosity about the future becomes natural. You don't want to build dreams around someone who sees you as temporary. You want to know if the connection you feel exists on both sides. So she searches for signs, not dramatic signs, but small confirmations that the bond between you has meaning beyond the present moment. And when she begins imagining you in her future, the possibility of losing you becomes something her mind quietly tries to avoid. But there is one final signal that reveals this fear more clearly than anything else, and it appears in the way she reacts when she senses distance between you. The final sign is one of the most powerful and one of the most revealing. Watch how she reacts when she feels you pulling away. Every relationship goes through moments of distance. Life becomes busy, stress appears, communication slows down, energy shifts. These things are normal parts of human connection, but when a woman is afraid of losing you, those moments create a noticeable reaction. She doesn't ignore the distance, she responds to it. Sometimes the response is gentle. She might reach out more. She might ask if everything is okay. She might suggest spending time together. Other times, the response appears as concern hidden behind humor or teasing, but the core emotion behind it remains the same. She notices the gap, and she tries to close it. Why? Because emotional investment changes how people react to uncertainty. When someone doesn't matter deeply, distance feels easy. If communication fades, the person simply moves on with their life. But when someone matters, silence becomes uncomfortable. Unanswered messages feel heavier. Time apart feels longer. The connection suddenly feels fragile, and the mind begins searching for reassurance. This is when you may notice her putting extra energy into reconnecting. Maybe she sends a message checking in. Maybe she remembers something you talked about and brings it up again. Maybe she invites you to do something together. These gestures aren't random. They are attempts to protect something meaningful. Psychologically, this behavior reflects a powerful truth about human relationships. We fight for what we're afraid to lose, not through control, not through manipulation, but through effort to reconnect. A woman who truly values a man doesn't disappear when she senses distance. She tries to understand it. She tries to repair the space before it grows wider. And this reveals something many people overlook. Fear of losing someone is not weakness. In healthy relationships, it's a reflection of emotional value. It means the connection has become important enough to protect. But the strongest relationships are not built on fear alone. They are built on mutual respect, honesty, and the willingness of two people to choose each other repeatedly, even when life becomes complicated. Because at the end of the day, love is not about possession. It's about appreciation. It's about recognizing that someone's presence in your life is meaningful and treating that connection with care. If you've ever noticed these signs in someone close to you, take a moment to reflect on what they mean. Sometimes the quiet behaviors people show us reveal emotions far deeper than words ever could. And now I'm curious about something. Have you ever noticed these signs in a relationship? Or realized someone was afraid of losing you only after it was too late? Share your experience in the comments. If this opened your eyes to something new about relationships, make sure you like the video, subscribe for more insights like this, and share it with someone who might need to hear this truth today.